Lamine Yamal is not shocked by the type of football that is played by the first team. Surviving relegation in the PSL is an art, and there's certain coaches who know how to do it. Coach Mangoba came in and implemented the first part of it, and maybe took the bullets and the arrows and the first attacks for bringing something different to the table. Welcome everybody to the George Mokoena podcast. My name is George Mokoena, I am your host, and this is a place where I look at some of the stories that caught my eye, give you my opinions of it in the hopes that we can start a conversation that I'm sure I'll be having with you guys coming into the comments. So please, if it's your first time here, feel free, like, subscribe, share, comment, do all of those very important things. I also want to add that I've been nominated at the TikTok Awards, Sub-Saharan Africa. So if you do want to vote for me, there will be a link in the description. So please, the voting closes on the 31st of December at 1 minute to 12. So if you can please follow the link, vote under the sports category. The sports category is where I have been nominated as one of the sports creators of the year. So please support me there. But anyway, let's get straight into it. Here's a story that we've seen a lot. But I'll first start with background. The background of the story is that Clinton Larsen announced after the All-Star game, where Magesi, the Carling knockout winners, took on an All-Star team voted by the fans. They lost that game, and in his post-match press conference or his post-match interview, he said that he is leaving. He said that he's done everything. He thanked the chairman. He did all of that. And Clinton Larsen is moving on after winning that trophy with Imakesi, which on one hand is a bit of a shock, but on the other hand seems to be exactly how things pan out. If you look at the story of the teams that get promoted to the PSL, they usually come in, they do well in some aspect, whether it be in the league, you finish Boma 13, you finish Boma 12, whether it be in a cup, similar to what Coach Clinton Larsen has done here, where he won a cup, you think about 10 dance with TS Galaxy. There's often a thing that happens where our clubs think, man, we've made it. We've made it. The coach is expendable. The coach can be moved on. We need to look at bigger things, right? If you think about the Richards Bay last year, a team that finished 15th, were guided back into the league, or back through the playoffs of the league by Coach Kanu. But then when they got there, they started speaking about how, man, they wanted bigger, they wanted more. And maybe the coach is not in their plans. So is this an issue that a lot of these teams will go and do relatively well with the coaches that brought them to the dance? And then when it's time to actually maybe add on some players, when it's time to actually extend the coach, when it's time when real questions are being asked about the team, they just don't seem to be committed enough to the people that got them there. And then they start making moves that don't make sense for where the club is, and they find themselves battling again exactly where they came from. So is this not a trend that we're seeing? Because it wouldn't be the first time that we saw South African coach do something like this. I mentioned Tendence. To this day, TS Galaxy, whenever you see an interview, whenever you see a piece that has been spoken about with the club, they'll always have that Nedbank Cup trophy displayed. But the coach that won them that Nedbank Cup, Tendence Malisela, doesn't get the same reverence, the same the same praise for doing that, right? They go far and away. They go as far as possible from giving that coach the due that they have. And then when these international options that they bring in that are meant to be better start failing, now you see them spinning around in the same place. But this is what I'll say. What I'll say is that Coach Larsen, both these parties used each other. Coach Larsen used the club, obviously, to get back into the eyes of the PSL. There were rumors about the Amazulu job, about the Golden Arrows job, about possibly the Richards Bay job, that are maybe more stable clubs, if you can look at it that way, where Coach Larsen may want to go back into now that he's back in the top flight. So in that sense, Coach Larsen has used Imakesi to get back to the good graces of the league. But then Imakesi also used him to get to the league. So I think if we look at it in that perspective, it is a draw. But I believe that the one big thing that our NFD teams have to do when they get promoted now, and we've seen now Magesi's at the bottom of the log, even though they won the trophy, incredible work, but they're at the bottom of the Betway Premiership log, and we saw it with Cape Town Spurs last year. Maybe, to their credit, to their point, maybe you do need a coach that can take you into the PSL and do well. Maybe the coach that brought you might not be enough to make sure that you stay in the PSL, right? But also, they also have to be fair. They didn't go out and bolster that team and bring in players and maybe build it up. And in the perfect world, when we speak about it, we always say that, it'd be so nice for a team to get promoted and stick with the players. But I think the truth of the matter is that a lot of changes have to happen. Now, I don't know if you do it like this. I don't know if you bring in a coach in the middle of the season to try and take over this club and make them play. I don't know if you bring in a coach in the middle of the season to try and save a team that's at the bottom, because that's exactly what happened with Ernst Middendorp and Cape Town Spurs. By the time Sean Bartlett was moved along, Cape Town Spurs was in such a hole that even with some good performances from Ernst Middendorp towards the back end of the season, it wasn't enough to save the team. And will a coaching change now be enough to save Imakesi? Another question you have to ask is, who exactly is going to come in? Is it going to be another Morgan Mamila merry-go-round situation? Because the truth of the matter is, the really good coaches probably don't want to be taking over a relegation-threatened team. Surviving relegation in the PSL is an art. And there's certain coaches who know how to do it. And as far as I can tell, they're not available unless the rumors about Dan Dance is true. And Dan Dance can go to Imakesi because his job apparently at Marumo Gallants is allegedly over. So maybe that could help. But realistically, you're not going to go up in coaching. You're not going to get a coach that's better than Clinton Larsen. You're not going to get a coach that's a mid-table coach or a top-level coach, because I don't think they have the skills to do that. So I'm looking to a Morgan Mamila, I'm looking to a Dan Dance, I'm looking to those type of coaches to come in and maybe rescue the situation. And at the end of the season, they're going to be moved along, and a European coach or somebody else is going to be brought in who's thought to be better. That is just the script of EPSL. Now, a team that has done the changes relatively okay. Mamelodi Sundowns has let go of Coach Rulani at the end of last season. They brought in Coach Mangoba, gave him a couple of months, and now he's been moved along for Coach Cardoso. And something that Coach Cardoso said in his press conference really stuck with me. He spoke about how he wouldn't be changing much at Mamelodi Sundowns. He wouldn't be coming on and changing what Coach Mangoba had been trying to lay for the last couple of months. And I think that is a very, very smart way to look at it. The way that he explains it is that, you got to come into the club. You got to see what the club is capable of. You got to get the buy-in of the players. You got to change whatever you need to change. But if you change too quickly, that might harm whatever structures, whatever players, whatever is at Mamelodi Sundowns currently. And I think that is an incredible way to look at this. And maybe where Coach Mangoba didn't grasp that part was trying to change things too quickly. What's also very interesting about this conversation with Miguel Cardoso specifically is that he's not coming into a team that has failed. A lot of the time when coaches come into teams where they've failed, you have a lot of leeway. But realistically, he's following a guy who almost went invincible, won the AFL, won the league by a record margin. You've then following, and then after that came a guy who was also, he had lost one game up to this point, has scored more goals than everybody else, was number one on the log. Yeah, there were blips in the cup competitions, but he wasn't doing badly. So when you come into the club, a lot of us were worried about fixing something that's not broken. I've said in previous videos where I was like, the departure from the chameleon to go into Mangoba's football, is that really, do you need that drastic of a change? Do you need to change the transitions and all of that so drastically, when the real fact of the matter is that Mamelodi Sundowns last season were not a team that was getting blown out or losing so many games and it was really about the last 20 minutes of the most important games. And I think that's where Coach Mangoba may have lost it a little bit, and that's where Coach Rulani had lost it. It was meant to be just a little bit of a tweak. So I like the fact that Miguel Cardoso is coming in and saying this. And this also shows the experience of a journeyman coach, the experience of a coach that's been jumping from club to club for a little bit now. That can be a red flag in some cases, because if he doesn't stay long at a club, what changes can he implement? What type of state does he leave the club afterwards? But it comes with a little bit of that experience in the coach in saying that, I don't need to do much. I use the example of Rulani all the time. People speak about the chameleon, and they speak about how the chameleon was so amazing, and hey, he changed some things and what, but they forget that he took literally about 7 months after getting given that job as sole head coach. He took about 7 months where Sundowns played the diamond, where Sundowns played similar to what they'd been playing up to that point, and he was just refining. He was looking for what's going to happen, where he's going to go, what the how do I tweak this? How do I use a Ronwen? How do I use Mudiba differently? How do I do all of these things? He had time to just leave the club as it is, maybe push them a little bit in some cases, and then when it came pre-season and the start of the season, then he changed everything. So I think it's an incredibly mature thing that Miguel Cardoso is saying. An interesting part of this whole conversation, and I'm going to get into it proper in the next segment, but an interesting part is that I think now we are seeing where Mamelodi Sundowns wants to go as a club. Sorry to interrupt the video that I'm sure you're enjoying, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of the support that you guys have shown me and my Overthinking Football platform. I'm a one-man band that's doing all of this, and I really do enjoy the comments about how, Supersport needs to come fetch me and SABC and all of that stuff. And I think it speaks to the quality of the content, but also the amount of effort that I put in. So I just wanted to say thank you. But the truth is that Abu Supersport and all of those guys, yes, we're competing with them, but it's a completely different place. The sponsors are looking for former players, and to be honest with you, running some of these things is getting so difficult, and things have changed at home. So financially, it's a whole different world. So I wanted to try something new and come to the overthinkers, the people who watch the content, and say it would be incredible if you guys could contribute monthly towards the platform, towards keeping my lights on, but also making sure that all of the crazy things that I want to do, that I want to take Supersport on with, I can actually do. And just for 20 Rand every month, I think that would be an incredible contribution if you can make it. It may sound like a little, but if we can get a lot of people behind it, then we'll be able to carry on doing what I do. I'll be able to carry on giving you the content and also expanding it, because we don't have shows like this, and us content creators need help from our audiences. So I just came here to ask you if you can. Here is the account number that you guys can use in order to contribute. And I think, I'd be very grateful if you would. But anyway, let's get back to the video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We are seeing Mamelodi Sundowns want this transition, and now Coach Manqoba came in and implemented the first part of it, and maybe took the bullets and the arrows and the first attacks for bringing something different to the table, whether it be from the fans, whether it be from the players, whether it be from management. He took all of those arrows for being somebody that needs to change it. But now Miguel Cardoso is saying in a way that, maybe this football is not very far from the football that I play, and it's not very far from the football I was brought in for, or into a play to implement. So maybe this is a Flemingberg and the Mamelodi Sundowns executive. Maybe this is the football that they've chosen and they want to go along with. And they can be there's a lot of benefits you get from knowing the football you want to play and knowing the coaches you want to bring in. But I really just wanted to touch on that I think it's incredible that we're seeing a new coach coming in and having the presence of mind to say, guys, whoa, I need to know everybody. I need to speak with the departments. In the presser, he speaks about the different departments and how they presented to him and he presented to them, and they're trying to get everything in order. He spoke about how the players have accepted him and wanting to do different things and wanting to play, right? Similar to what they've been playing and how they've been welcoming. And I think that is a very smart move, even from, let alone the pitch perspective. From the point of view of being somebody who's coming into the club who needs to be loved. The moment I ask you to do a million different things, different to how you were doing them before, you may have reservations. You may not want to do those type of things. But what do they say about the frog in a pot analogy? If you put a frog into a pot and you turn up the heat a little bit, by the time it realizes that because it's been going up gradually, it doesn't realize it. But the moment you put a live frog into water that's boiling, it may jump out. And maybe that's what happened with Coach Manqoba, with Mokoena, with the Motaung, what happened with the fans, what happened with everything. He just was too much of a change too soon, and that may have hurt him. But to continue on this conversation about how the structure of a club influences everything at a club, Khanye came out and spoke about some development problems in South Africa. He highlighted how players like Abo Emil Witboy, Abo Kamuhelo Moreletsi, the players who were playing for the COSAFA Amachita team recently that were doing relatively well, may not be able to shine like Abo Lamine Yamal. He mentioned Lamine Yamal being a 16-year-old who's breaking into the Barcelona team, who's breaking into the Spanish team, whereas our COSAFA players under 17, under 20 can't even break into the main COSAFA team. They can't even break into Bafana Bafana on top of that. So he spoke about all of those type of things. Now, what caught my eye for me was two things. I'll start with this one. Are our teams built to nurture talent? Are our teams built to develop players that by the time they leave development, they're ready to play? Because for me, it really feels like the development structures are there to find players, and then those players are then pushed into the first teams to then learn. To then, learn the basics, learn the team structure, learn the this, learn the that, become first team players. And really, if you look at Abola Masia, and I must admit, players like Lamine Yamal are once in a lifetime, or it only happens every so often that a club can do that. That's why Barcelona doesn't have a bunch of teenagers playing for them right now. But in any case, they have a history of bringing in young players, bringing in those players that are ready. It's almost like when you drop them into the first team, they are ready, they can play immediately. Right? Or they can even go to other clubs where they'll be ready there as well to be starters. They'll be same time starters, right? You think about a Cesc Fabregas who left La Masia and he was a starter at Arsenal. He was playing when he was 16, 17 at Arsenal. He was playing with the big players, your Henrys and all of those guys, and he didn't look out of place. In fact, he looked like one of the best players. So do we create that type of pipeline? Do we create that type of ready-made player that can jump in? Already when we speak about our players and the prospects of going overseas, right? Darren Buckley came out in a different article, in a different interview, where he said the reason why South African players are not being taken is because they're just not consistent. So the player is an incredible 19-year-old, an incredible 18-year-old, an incredible 17-year-old, but they've only got 2-3 games, right? They've only got 2-3 games. They've only got, if they're starters, they've only got 2-3 amazing games. If they can even get to 5, 6, 7 games where they're starting within those first teams. So when those teams look at them, they go, oh, but am I babysitting another player? And I think that is the problem a little bit with the development from that side. But I think the thing that I really want to get into is, do our clubs have strong enough cultures to make sure that those players can make the change from the development to the first team? And I mean it like this. Khanye, in that article, in that interview, he speaks about how Mamelodi Sundowns now has a new coach who's coming in, or a new coach comes in and those players have to start from scratch. And he wanted to put it in the sense that they have to work hard in order to get into that team. It's almost like you're taking them a step backwards. But I want to speak about the cultural side of it, right? Coach Nazruddin Nabi is now the first team coach of Kaizer Chiefs. Is Coach Vela playing Nazruddin Nabi football? Coach Vela, head of the development, the top development coach at Chiefs, does he play the same football as the first team? Because that's very important in making sure that Uplaya Maralana and he gets to the first team, he doesn't have to adapt. Obviously adapting to environment and all of those different changes, but you don't have to adapt to the style of play because there's a pipeline. Lamine Yamal is not shocked by the type of football that is played by the first team, because even if it's different, it's not that far away from what they're used to. So when he graduates and makes that change and upgrades into the first team, they already know how to play. We've heard about Abu Xavi, Abu Iniesta, who have played the Barcelona way pretty much their whole lives. So when they keep going up the rungs, there isn't that change. But then the broader question becomes then again, do the clubs understand this phenomenon? Do the clubs know that the GDL has to play this way, the DDC has to play this way, the first team has to play this way if we are going to create a proper pipeline? Do our clubs do enough work to knowing exactly what they want to play, implementing that, but more importantly, finding coaches that match? In the previous segment, I spoke about how in Mamelodi Sundowns, it seemed as though they've decided on a way of playing, they've decided on a way forward, and now they've brought in a coach who's going to continue that way, who's not that different, and maybe the next coach that comes in is going to continue that way, and the next coach after that, and that is how you craft an identity. But if the first team is consistently changing every single year, if every day there's new styles of play, think about it. Coach Nasruddin Nabi, I'll use Chiefs as an example. Coach Nasruddin Nabi plays a different football to Kevin Johnson, plays a different football to Mulifin, plays a different football to Atta Zwani, who plays a different football to Stuart Baxter, who plays a different football to Gavin Hunt, who played a different football to Middendorp. If now we've had years of this thing, but yet there's been the same continuity at the development level, are we surprised that we're not seeing that many players make it into the first team? Are we surprised that when they do, they're not cooked and ready to that level? And maybe we should start asking questions about how they are structured, man. Because when you start doing those things, or when you're not doing those things, it's easy to disrupt a lot. It's easy for a coach, as Junior Khanye is afraid of, it's easy for a coach to come in and bring in a different style of play that now knocks all of the players that were on the bench, all of the players that were hoping to break into the first team off of their perch, because maybe that coach is going to want you to do something different. Think about how different the Mamelodi Sundowns players looked when Manqoba Mngqithi took charge and he had changed the style of play. I guess we all started looking at these players like, I know more players were questioning, more people were questioning Manqoba, but we all started looking at the players like, Debza, are you really that talented? Are you really that adaptable? Are you really the star that I thought you were? Or was it the system that was shielding you? These are the things that we have to question from our clubs. Because if we look at the PSL, I don't know what the style of play of Richards Bay is. What is Richards Bay's default style? Coach aside, what type of football do they play? What type of football does Royal AM play? And that is the team that has had the same coach from the Bloemfontein Celtic days. What football do they play? What is Bloemfontein Celtic football? What is Gallant's football? What is the myriad of teams? Probably, I think, maybe 13 of the 16 teams, or let's say 12, 13 of the 16 teams don't have a set play. The only guys we can look at that way is your Sundowns. We can look at your Pirates, we can look at your Stellenbosch and say, okay, I know when they come out onto the pitch, I must expect 1, 2, 3. Maybe Supersport, to a degree, you know exactly what Gavin Hunt is going to try to do. And he signs players, by and large, that are going to fit into that style of play, which makes it a little bit easier. So when people are speaking about Supersport and they're saying that this Supersport is, developing all these Abo Maswanganyi, Abo Campbell, Abo Williams, Abo Banban, Abo, all of these different players that have come from Supersport. Kevin, the reason why it's so seamless is because they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they want to play. They know exactly what they want to bring on. So the development coaches are focused on certain things. The coach is focused on certain things. And all of those things come together. You look at a Stellenbosch that is very successful with bringing in players. They also have a line. Coach Steve Barker has had the same assistant coach, Coach Wesley. I'm forgetting his surname. The Coach Wes, who has been with him since Amatak's days. Then you have Coach Van, who was also the Amatak's development coach, the head of the top development coach at Amatak when Coach Barker was there. They all moved together to Stellenbosch. So the line coming from development into Stellenbosch and the consistency in the coaching Now they've got a culture that they can build on. And maybe if they get rid of Coach Barker, they may know where to go from there. But all of this, these things speak to each other. The last thing I want to speak about is back to the point about development not being a place where development being a place where they find players and not being a place where they develop players becomes an issue also because when coaches come in, let's be honest, guys, people are getting fired. People are losing their jobs. I cannot be asked to babysit a DDC player who's not ready and teach them and grow them and make them better and all of that stuff when my job is on the line. You know, Chiefs was often a place where players went to die. In the past few years, where development players went to die because the coaches could not risk bringing in kids and youngsters. Sliwa. The trophies are not there. So that culture also does not allow for young players to come in. The culture does not allow for this development. There's still development that needs to happen. And there's only a handful of coaches in the league that have the backing of management like that, or the trust of management that you know what, man, we're willing for you to lose some games if you can save us money with these development players. Think about Stellenbosch. Steve Barker's not going anywhere anytime soon, so he can experiment as much as he wants with bringing in Abo Jaden Adams, bringing in Abo Van Veek, bringing in Abo Titus and all those. He can do whatever he wants. You think about Gavin Hunt at Supersport, complains a lot, yes, but for the most part, he can do whatever he wants knowing that maybe he's safe. Secondary coaches that have, coaches that might have that thing, Abo Jose Rivero, even though he had to prove himself, may have carte blanche to bring in Abo Nkota, to bring in Abo Mbata, to bring in Abo Mfukeng. And even that privilege, he had to earn it by winning. What of the rest of the coaches? Coach Nabi may be given some rope right now by management because he's coming in with the experience and all of that stuff. Cool. But Abo Siema get fired year in, year out. Abo Coach Tentes get fired year in, year out. So is it also a pipe dream for us to believe that, you know, these coaches must care when their jobs are on the line? Should they even care for the development of players? To be honest, at the top level, the top league in the country, why should I be developing players there? Or maturing players? Develop. Maybe I can make players better, but I can't be trying to make them good. And sitting with the consistency issues and sitting with, I can't. So that's another aspect that we have to look at here, that we might be a little bit unfair on some of these coaches. You think Coach Caroso has time to make sure that Litlaku is good? You think that, Uma Pena is now going to be given time to get better? No. So it would be very good for Mamelodi Sundowns to make sure that the players that are brought in are ready. And here's a very interesting pattern in world football. The coaches that bring in the young players are usually sacked very quickly. They're usually the ones that are sacked. Bukayo Saka was not brought in by Arteta. He was brought in by Unai Emery. People don't forget that. He was sacked for them to find it. Abo Khoza, Abo Litlaku were brought in by Coach Manqoba, sacked before he could use those players. So that's another interesting thread. And if the clubs are going to be moving into a business-like place where they're just replacing coaches, a shawarma coach every week, development is always going to suffer. If managements don't give them the mandate to do this, if managements don't make sure that the developments are creating players that are ready to come in. The fact that Puso Diteja can go into TS Galaxy from Chiefs' development and play well, and you ask the question about how Mara, where are the TS Galaxy boys that are in the DDC? Why aren't they? Somebody took the risk to develop that boy. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. Please, again, don't forget to vote for me in the TikTok Awards. The link will be in the bio, well, in the description of this, but also in the links of all of my profiles. So please, please, please support. I would really love to take South African football to another level. And the fact that we're being recognized for local football. I don't cover Manchester United. I don't cover Chelsea. I don't cover Barcelona, PSG. I cover our teams that are near and dear. So the fact that we can move up to that place is very important, but I really do need your help in making sure that I stand a chance to win that award. Guys, it's been incredible. I'll see you on the next one.